what I was told. He was part of the MK Ultra program for super soldiers, and they were harassing him, and they were remote viewing him, and they were using their power to create confusion, and they were using psychotronics on him. He called me up one day, and he had a blue Arcturian sculpture, and he also had a Zeta sculpture. Those were his most favorite sculptures, right? And he called me up one day and he said, I don't want to upset you, but I need to know how to fix my blue Arcturian. I threw it across the room. And I said, you threw it? You really threw it? He goes, well, you wouldn't understand. And I said, no, try me. And he said, so they were using psychotronics on me and I was going crazy. He was completely out of control and he didn't know how to handle the energy that was coming into him, and he threw the sculpture out of resentment towards what was happening. And I thought, boy, I'd never heard about this before. And then when I found out that about 6 months later he commits suicide, it broke my heart. But I do have some good news for you about him. I contacted my friend Cassandra and said, Cassandra, can you channel him or connect with my star family and ask them if my friend Chris, his name was Chris Neal, if Chris is okay, how Chris is doing on the other side? And she said the psychotronics was so hard on him, he couldn't handle it anymore. But you need to know he's on the ship right now. And right now, what he's doing more than what he could do here on Earth, because he has no interference with psychotronics. So what is psychotronics? Anybody here know what psychotronics is? Psychotronics is a way in which they use frequency to change or to manipulate something. Now, do you remember when earlier, I think it was yesterday, someone was talking about the frequency effects on water and sand? Okay. I tuned in for a day and a half about on the internet and went to every site I could possibly call up in regards to psychotronics and listen to it while I was sculpting. I have to, do two things at once or I'm not doing my work. And as I was listening to it, on one of the programs, they were showing pictures of what happens when psychotronics is used on the cell, or on the cells of your body. So, first of all, this is not meant to scare you or create fear, because the truth is, when you know how to deal with psychotronics, you are in your power. And by God, I want to make sure all of you are in your power when you leave here. That this never happens to anyone else. I love all of you. I may not know you, but I love you. I love you because I know you're here to help humanity. And the last thing I want to do is see any of you go through what Chris went through. So, when I was watching this one video, they actually showed in a petri dish, under a microscope, they showed what happens to your cells. They used blood cells, tissue cells, brain cells for this demonstration. And they were using lower frequencies than a 7 frequency. These were lower frequencies, and there are some frequencies that are more damaging than others. I encourage you to research this as much as you can on your own, because I don't have time to go over everything I learned through this, but I will say this, that when they were showing the results of certain frequencies on the blood cells, you could actually see the blood cells not only shifting, changing shapes, but you could also see them becoming deformed, and some of them were literally, I think it's the nuclei, was literally vulnerable, seeping out. So if it does this, I've heard that people can come down with various illnesses or diseases from psychotronics. There's also people that have claimed that they have been mentally manipulated You've heard about the movie, not The Matrix, oh boy, I hate this when I have a brain fart. Now I'm trying to think. Manchurian Candidate.
Yep.
The Manchurian Candidate. Okay, so what happens is our government has literally used the psychotronics to create thoughts in our head. Whether they use it to create thoughts that will cause us to think to create paranoia in us, to create anger, resentment. You know, the first time I heard about some of the shootings that were going on years ago at the universities and the schools, my guides immediately said, they didn't do it. They were manipulated. Their thoughts were manipulated, and they said, Manchurian Candidate. And that caused me to research this. The other thing, am I okay on time? Fine. Okay, great. Getting back to the psychotronics, the other thing psychotronics did when they were using brain cells, you could see the edges of the cells literally completely fraying. If this happens in a petri dish, what do you think it's happening to us? Now, the best thing we can do to make sure it doesn't happen to us is, number one, we need to be familiar with the frequencies, and we need to also learn how to tone these higher frequencies, sing the higher frequencies, or the other thing they do, how many people hear the very high pitches in their head? It's like real high, ee! Okay, yeah, okay. Do you know that my guides told me that the reason why a lot of us hear them is to diffuse the psychotronics?
Thank you.
Yeah. I thought that every time I heard those high pitches, I thought it was because a ship was around. Yes, sometimes it's because ships are around, and sometimes it's because the beings are around us, whether we can see them or not. But they keep this around us, and if you hear a real high pitch suddenly, you may realize then your guides are protecting you. There will come a time where you're going to be teaching this to other people, how to use the frequencies to protect themselves, to empower themselves, and also to raise their own vibration and awaken even more, and to activate their psychic abilities. I'm going to look at some notes here, just to make sure I don't leave out anything important. So the importance, again, of these tones and the frequency that we need to become familiar with is not only for the psychotronics, but also to assist us in the shift that's going on, and also the shift that is going on in the oneness of all of us coming together, all of us being one. The other thing is the light and love. You can use that to defend yourself, protect yourself, empower yourself. I was taken to, as Barbara was talking about, and some of her clients, when she's put them under, and they've talked about being in a school where they're being taught various things. I too remember going to various schools. But what I learned later on, a few years after I was going to these schools, they said, you're not going to the schools to learn anything new. These schools are meant to help you remember who you are and what you already have the ability to do. Every one of us has incredible abilities. And the worst thing we can do is not believe it. In fact, they're constantly talking in my head when I start saying anything about myself. If it's anything negative, you know, like, oh, I can't do that. They'll let me know. You can't because you've told yourself you can't, but you can. Or as long as we feed ourselves this negativity, we are not going to be able to do these things. They stop us from doing what is natural for us. Believe in yourself. If I'm to give you any message that's really important here to walk away with, not only is it about using your love and light and knowing the frequencies and about psychotronics, it's about the power that we have. Every single one of us, the power that we have when we start believing we can do it. As soon as we say, well, I can't sing that well, and I really can't. Gotta admit that. I don't sing well, but I could. I suppose if I really wanted to, I could change my voice, but we can really do these things by believing in ourselves, because we sabotage ourselves when we don't believe. Remember when I was talking about the sculptures the last time I was out here, and I was talking about what the sculptures have done for people? Do you know those sculptures cannot do for you any more than you can do for yourself, but they assist us. They are our guides that come through the sculptures to help keep us on our path, to give us the information we need to move forward. They assist us in so many more ways than we know, but as soon as we start believing that they don't have power. For example, I had one person call me that was telling me about all this incredible things that she was doing with her sculpture and how she had really changed her life using the sculpture, because the sculpture was teaching her or assisting her and doing her work and in remembering how to use her powers. And all it took was one person that came to her and said, "That's only a sculpture, it can't do anything." And she called me up and she goes, "I can't get my sculpture to communicate with me. And this guy kept saying, it's only a sculpture and it can't do this and that." And she's going on. And I said, wow, he really sabotaged you, didn't he? When we don't believe, it won't happen. Do you need the sculptures in order to come into your power? Remember who you are? No, you don't. But let me tell you, many of us want to know what our star family looks like. And we want to feel they're with us. So a lot of times, people who get the sculptures are people who want to feel like their star family is there with them all the time. If you'd like to know more about some of the experiences people have had, you can go to the website www.etsculptor.com. And there is a section in there where you can read about the experiences with the sculptures. And I'm going to show you some of the sculptures and tell you some of the stories, but we don't have enough time to go through a lot of them. So I'll do that in just a moment. The other thing I want to talk about was 1221. All of us expected something exciting and great, and we thought there were going to be mass landings around the universe or around the planet. We were waiting for all these huge ships and everything. And I even went to South Carolina because some wonderful friends of mine said, "We want you out here so if the ships land and we get on the ships, that we know we'll be with you." So I flew out there. And I said, "Okay, I'm ready to go on the ship." And we had a great time out there, but 2012 came. And 1221 came, and we meditated in the house, and we actually had, oh my gosh, so many beings came into the room that we felt like we were being squished. We couldn't, I mean, it was unbelievable. We could actually feel a ship come down over the house, but you couldn't see it. You could feel the presence and the pressure. You know, as the ship comes down, there's a certain pressure that comes in, and the room was just filled. But that's all that happened, and when we went outside looking for ships, no ships. And I'm going, oh, I was hoping this would be more exciting than this. The next morning I woke up, and David, this is David Godson and his beautiful English wife, Liz, That morning, next morning, I was supposed to fly home, as long as the ship didn't take us. And as soon as I got up to have breakfast with them, David said, by golly, Cynthia, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I got up because I couldn't sleep, and by golly, I heard the door open to your room, and out comes, he says, do you have a long white gown? I said, no. He said, well, okay. He said, you came out of your room and with your white hair, your long white gown, but he said, I wasn't sure if I was seeing things or what, because your skin was glowing. I have had so many people call me up, including a friend of mine in Australia told me her husband had gone to Belgium. I may have told the story before last time, but I'll tell it real quickly. Her husband didn't believe when he found out his wife had bought 2 sculptures. He said, I don't believe in that, until he looked at the pictures of the sculptures, and all of a sudden he saw the Andromedan adult sculpture, and he says, oh my gosh, it that quick triggered memory of him in ancient Egypt, exactly as he looked, and he drew this phenomenal picture. Great artist, this guy. Phenomenal picture of what he looked like in ancient Egypt as an Andromedan. It was incredible. He takes the picture and he goes to Belgium. He's a salesman and he travels all over Europe and so forth. Goes to Belgium with the picture and walks up to this woman, psychic, that he'd gone to off and on, and he lays this picture down that he had drawn, and then another picture of me, and he says, I want you to tell me about this woman. Who is she? Is she real? Is she for real? And the psychic said, well, it's interesting you bring this picture to me, because the night before, I have never had a ship land in my yard, never had any contact, but the night before a ship lands in my backyard, I'm sound asleep, and she says, I think I'm dreaming it. And out of the ship walks 2 women in long white robes. Both of them have blonde hair, or white hair, actually white hair. This really isn't blonde, it's white. White hair, and they're kind of glowing. And she pointed to my picture and she said, that was the one that came up and spoke to me. And she said, yes, she's for real. And she is a hybrid. That was something really interesting. Then I had another guy from Turkey contact me who says, I go to Turkey frequently to the villages and I talk to the villagers about the star people and teach them how to connect with them and also how to recognize their star family. So that was an interesting thing. Looking back at David Godson. I got to get back to David Godson. Oh my God. This guy, about 3 years ago, had bought a sculpture from me. He calls me up on the phone. He says, young lady, I hope you don't mind if I ask you a few questions. I'm really interested in your sculptures. In fact, I'm going to grab one of them for a second. And David said, I happened to be driving home from work one day, and running across the road was a mantis being about 7 feet tall, and it was this color. Looked exactly like this, right? And he said, nobody could see it, but I could see it. And he said, I decided I want to place an order. Well, his wife, Liz, said, I want the mantis. And he says, well, okay, I'll take an Arcturian, right? So I send them their sculptures. And interestingly enough, they since have several sculptures. And they have a daughter, by the way, that lives in England also. And her name is Julia Crocker. And I have to tell you about her because Julia, if you want to get anybody going to England and wants a phenomenal regression in England, this woman did a regression on me on December 21st. And I was absolutely shocked at the detailed information that came through about the Zeta. And it is an aquatic being. that can also live on land, and I could describe exactly the food they ate and about the underwater crystal castles that they swam in and out of. And I also learned something very important, which I'd never, ever fathomed. This was so exciting to me. When Zuma Zeta, first of all, Zuma Zetas can be, the masters can be over 8 feet tall. But the interesting thing is, they're not that tall until they become masters. They go through different stages. When they get to a certain age, they are forced to leave their container, their bodies. And they have to take on another container because they have already learned what it is to love unconditionally and to share an experience and to be one. Their group, by the way, they're called pods. They form pods. They swim together as pods. They have arms and legs like humans, but they're webbed. Okay? And they have, let's see, what else? A dolphin skin. Well, interestingly enough, that when they reach a certain age, they have to go off into the caves by themselves. They cannot be with anyone. They can't say goodbye to mommy and daddy. They have to be by themselves. And I recalled being by myself when I left my body. And I got to experience when I came to Earth to find out what it was to be a human. You cannot be a Zeta master, a Zuma Zeta master, until you've experienced various lifetimes as different beings. Whether we know this or not, we've lived numerous lifetimes. We've got many aspects of ourself coexisting, maybe in another dimension, on other planets. And the reason we have these aspects is because these aspects can learn, well, for example, while I'm here on Earth, maybe another aspect of mine is on Arcturus, and I'm doing something else, but I'm learning from that aspect of myself, and we're sharing the information back and forth. Now, what was interesting, and we're unaware of it until now what's happening, people are contacting me and saying, I don't know what's happening to me, but you told me, well, one of them was this guy who said, you told me I was a Syrian warrior of light, and now you're telling me I'm Arcturian? What's with that? Who's confused here? Well, our aspects are working with this human aspect, with us, to give us the information that we need. And those aspects, by the way, are also helping us, empowering us, making us stronger, giving us information. Many of you have been experiencing this lately, where we'll think of a question or something will come up in our mind, and we'll be questioning something, and then all of a sudden someone comes up with the answer and they didn't even know that you were thinking of the question, right? Or somebody, you'll be thinking about somebody, and the next thing you know, the phone's ringing and it's them. But they're still connecting with us in many ways we do. And I said to this guy that said, well, if I'm Syrian warrior of light, how can I also be Arcturian? And I explained to him about his aspect. Interestingly enough, he is now doing things, because the blue Arcturians especially, and let me get the blue Arcturian. And this blue Arcturian I've made into a plaque. I also make a teenager as well that stands up. It's a sculpture that stands up. But this one is a master. And the reason I make this one is they have a tendency, I didn't know when I made it that it did this, but I learned from you guys telling me your experiences. Most of the people that have had these plaques have called me to tell me about being on ships, or meeting with the council, the Arcturian council, being taken to the council and so forth. I had no idea. When I made these sculptures, I didn't know they had purposes. But this is the blue Arcturian. Anyway, the interesting thing is the blue Arcturians are the ones that are very detail-oriented. They're very, very focused. And what happened to this guy was all of a sudden, he started getting involved in scientific type information and other information that required a lot of that concentration and so forth. And interestingly, his features, his facial features began to change a little bit too. And I could see that he began looking more Arcturian. But we've got so many aspects of ourselves that they're all coming together now to assist us. So do expect it. Do expect that when you start feeling like you're shifting or changing, embrace it. It's a new part of you that has come together to give you more assistance, more advice, more information, and so forth, so you can help others. That's really why we are here, is to help the rest of humanity awaken and embrace their true purpose and learn about the Ascension and get through the Ascension. Oh, another thing I just happened to recall, David Godson. I want to tell you, after he got these sculptures, about a year ago he started drawing pictures of various beings. He called me the other day and he said, by golly, you won't believe this, but I am now doing two-dimensional beings. Did you know that when we first start off, we're part of this, okay, this is my belief from what I was taught, so if you want to accept it, that'd be great, and if not, that's fine too, because you've got to accept your own truth. Don't always take what other people say as your truth. Bring it into your heart, and if it resonates, then take it. And if it doesn't, let it go. Because I don't have all the answers. I'm doing good to try and find my own answers. How can I have yours too? So the thing that happened with David was that he started drawing these beings, and as we learned that we're part of Source, we came from the Source, and we have to experience first what it is to be a one-dimensional being, 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, so on. He has literally drawings that are phenomenal of beings that are even in much higher dimensions. I mean, they go even beyond 18, 19, 20 dimensions. They're much higher than that. And he's been drawing some of these, but the other day he showed me some, emailed me some pictures of 2-dimensional beings, and they're absolutely precious. They're adorable. And this was his first time of experiencing them. They look like stick people because in their dimension, that's what they are. He's doing children's books now. He's writing his first children's books for those of you that have kids or have nephews, nieces, or know anyone that's got children and you want to get a gift. He's going to have these books available very soon, and these will be coloring books. Now, can you imagine anything greater than having coloring books where children can learn about these beings? There will be a paragraph telling about where these beings come from and what they do on their planet and whatever's special about them. And they draw them whatever color they want. Now, I also was asked recently to go to the Netherlands and teach a class, do a workshop at a place in the Netherlands. I didn't know this existed. It's a starseed school. A lot of us have talked about, wouldn't it be great if there were starseed school? Well, there is one in the Netherlands. I wish, I'll have to get the address for, if anyone wants them, the address. But anyway, they asked me if I would go there and teach the workshop to the kids about the beings. And I said, how about if I do a workshop and teach the kids how to make their own star family? Can you imagine how awesome that would be? Oh my God, that's the most incredible thing we can do. We need to encourage these kids to be creative, to share, for we learn from them. I had a woman contact me one time. Her and her husband, they had no interest whatsoever in beings from other worlds, but their son They told me the story about their son being a mantis being. And they wanted to know how in the world they can help their son because he was so different from some of the other children. And he had abilities to do things that the other kids didn't have. And they didn't know if he needed special schooling or what he needed. And I said, the only thing you need to know is ask your son how you can help him. A lot of the children on this planet right now that are considered autistic or with other different learning difficulties and so forth like that, quite honestly, many of them are the star people coming in at this time. The other thing is our governments knew back in the 1940s when they were experimenting with time travel, they knew we star seeds would come here to assist humanity. We were going to help them and so forth. They didn't want us to help in the Ascension, so they devised ways to make immunizations that would affect those star seeds. So I encourage all of you, anyone listening to this, to please, before you immunize your children, think about it. What are you doing to them? Many of the diseases that they have gotten has been a reaction to these inoculations that they've been giving. So we need to be concerned about that. We need to keep them pure. It was interesting when I had my son, the night that I was impregnated with my son. That sounds so funny, doesn't it? Impregnated. The truth was, I woke up after having what I thought was a dream of being on a ship and this bright light in my face, and I'm like, I think I'm at a gynecologist's office or something. My legs are up there and so forth, and they're saying, and this voice is saying to me, you are going to have a son, and he will do great things in the future to help Mother Earth, to help save humanity. So I do know that they do impregnate many of us with these star seeds. So, and I've heard from many of the people that have had star seeds and know that they've been carrying hybrids, and many of you are hybrids. So we need to value our children as well and make sure that they're able to share as much as they can with us. Okay, then, there's a good one. How many of you are waking up an hour earlier than you went to bed? Anybody have that experience? Oh my gosh. This has been, sometimes I don't get off the phone. Is that right, Diane? Diane is my business partner, and let me tell you, there are times she's trying to call me to ask me questions or just to talk, and she can't get through to me all day long. My phone rings all the time, it seems, right? It's like, I'm going to have to get rid of that phone because I can't even think straight anymore. It's constantly ringing, but I've had a number of people recently call me about things. One guy in Florida told me about, he says, you know, I work the late shift and I didn't get to go on to bed in time, and I thought, well, I'll go to bed and sleep for a few hours at least before I go to work. So he lays down at 3 o'clock. He wakes up and he thinks he's completely rested. He thinks he must have at least slept 2 to 3 hours. He looks at the clock, it's 2 o'clock. I woke up myself a couple times the same time. I think it was like something around 1 something in the morning, and I got up, fixed myself something to drink, snuck in a few munchies, and then went back to bed. The next time I wake up, it's the exact same time. And I'm going, what's going on here? This happens a lot to us. The other thing is the reason they're doing this to us is because they want us to remember, right? Remember that we're on the ships. We can't remember what's being said on the ships or what we're doing on the ships because we don't dare give away any of the strategies that they're planning. You know, whether we want to accept it or not, our planetary system is shifting, and we've had numerous new Earths due to the way the planets rotate in the universe every so many thousands of years. They've said the planets have flipped, and there's been evidence of this. We're finding artifacts all over the planet right now, and these artifacts are very high energy artifacts that are had been put here 50,000 years ago. They were able to carbon date some of these artifacts, and they were put here to keep the planet from flipping. We're not gonna flip. And we might flip over somebody, but it's not gonna be the planet, you know. Anyway, so that's the other thing that's been going on. So we're going to be having a lot of challenges. We need to know we've been through everything and anything you can possibly imagine in other lifetimes. There isn't one thing we can't get through in this lifetime. And the only way we're going to get through these things that are coming up is to work together, to help one another, to awaken one another, to teach people not to fear, to teach people what it is to love unconditionally, for that love is so incredible. You literally can move mountains with love. I mean, really. You can also remove mountains with love. You can do so much with love. But we need to understand that that is where our power comes from. My guides constantly remind me, get out of your head and get into your heart. When I happen to slip a little bit, it's all about being in the heart. Be in the heart now. Stay in the heart. Don't leave that heart. You don't need to be in your head. You've got the intelligence already. No matter how much we think we don't know, we really know. Tune in. Connect into your heart. Find your answers in your heart. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about some of these other sculptures. So give me just a second. Okay, a lot of you have never seen my Reptilian. This one is a hybrid. I just started making these again. I had made them once before. I know that there's a lot of things that have been said in the past about how negative reptilians are, and I've got to tell you, some of the greatest love I've ever experienced has come from reptilians. They are very loving. Many of them are very loving. Even the ones that are not so nice, that are negative, once you understand how to be in your power, they cannot ever hurt you. They cannot abduct you, and they certainly won't probe you if you use your love and light. So please use your love and light. But these guys are the good guys, okay? And they're here to assist us. Where I live against the Superstition Mountains, I've had several of the friends that Diane and I have gotten to know since we've been working on these sculptures. And they have talked about seeing the reptilians hopping, literally leaping. There are so many reptilians out around the Superstition Mountain, and I feel very blessed, very honored that they're around me. They have protected me. Many times they have protected me, and it was interesting. They thought I was in danger one time of this one guy, and the guy was really no danger to me. But they literally came, and this was a party we were having in April of last year, and a guy had asked me to stand out with two other people into the field, or desert. Actually, it's a desert. There's all kinds of cactus, and you got to watch where you go because you'll get stuck by them. But anyway, they asked me to go out there and to communicate with these beings. We had dozens and dozens of different species of beings come through what's called a vortex or a veil. They call it a veil, we call them vortexes, okay? They came through and they introduced themselves. One, of course, was a mantis being just like the one I had showed you a few minutes ago. Then we had as well some Zetas, Andromedans, Arcturians come through. When we were doing this meditation out there in the desert, one of the guys standing close to me, all of a sudden, a reptilian that was about 2 miles away leapt all the way over and stood right in front of this guy as if challenging him. He was protecting me and I didn't know it. And what we had to do was we sent this reptilian love and light, and he goes, very defensively, well, I'm not here to cause any problems. I just wanted to find out what you're all doing here. Right? Okay. Then of course, he didn't leave, but he moved. But this is what he said. Well, he literally did push the guy back about 12 feet. But he said, I'm not going to leave because I want to watch you. I want to observe you. And he said, but I won't bother you. So they were very honorable. They really were. The other, our dear friend, John, his name was John Sackett, passed away recently of a heart problem. And John was one of the guys out there in the desert with me. The three of us were standing out there to communicate to them while 20-some people were behind us and observing everything. The second party we had, John actually had a tall white Zeta come into his body. We're sitting there, some of us were sitting, some were standing, listening to John as he spoke from his heart what the white Zeta wanted him to say. And all of a sudden we realized we could see the Zeta in his body, but it was taller than him. John was only like maybe 5'8", and the Zeta's head popped out way above his. You know, so here's this Zeta in his body, and it's kind of like if you can imagine being in a Volkswagen and with a, what is that little sunroof, and imagine somebody so big that they're popping out through the sunroof. That's the way it looked when the Zeta came into him. We also have a facility in the Superstition Mountains that is the tall white facility. Diane and I and Diane's husband hiked up it because they had let us know that we could visit them. Interestingly, they told us that they had been in this facility for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and they were in the facility when it was under the ocean. Now, this mountain is probably over 4,000 feet tall. They were in this facility all that time, and they're still in it, and they told us that we would know for sure that what they were saying was true. They were telepathically communicating with us, is what happened. I jumped forward a little bit, so I'm going to back up for a moment. I was hiking with Jacqueline Smith. Anybody know Jacqueline Smith? Not the actress, the psychic Jacqueline Smith. She's also known as a pet psychic. We were hiking one day, and when she came to visit, and all of a sudden, 8 to 9 tall white Zetas were standing near us. I couldn't see them, nor could the other woman that was with us see them, but Jacqueline Smith could, and she relayed their message. And they said, "You are welcome to come into our facility." That's why Diane and her husband and I went hiking up there. We definitely wanted to get to the facility, but it was very steep, and Diane did better than I did. She wanted to go all the way to the facility, and I wore out before she did. So I was the one that said, "I'm sorry, I can't make it this time. Can we try it again some other time?" Also, another friend of ours, Cassandra, came with me to hike up the mountain, and the Zetas were talking to her as well. And what Cassandra said, she said, let me tell you what they're saying. She starts talking the Zeta language. And this went on for a few minutes, and then she interpreted it. And they said, you will know that what I say and the truth about our facility, for we are going to give you a sign that all this is true. And we thought, a sign? Okay. So we turned around and started hiking up, higher up the mountain, and just as we turned around, there is a turtle on the slope of the mountain. It's in the 70s. Desert tortoises don't come out when it's in the 70s, nor do you find them on rocky areas of mountains. They do not live there. They live in the desert, not on the mountains. And as we turned around was this most awesome, huge desert tortoise. Well, huge, okay, I exaggerate. It wasn't really huge. It was probably 2 feet long. No, it wasn't either. It was only, about, I don't know, 12 to 15 feet, or inches long. Feet, oh, that's a big one. Inches long. And this entire shell looked like marble. It glowed like marble. You know, that shiny surface? And this is what we found out. When we took a photograph of that tortoise, it looked just like a regular desert tortoise, but our eyes did not see it as a regular desert tortoise. The shell was reflecting the floor of the cave where these tall white Zetas have their facility, and they showed us telepathically what it looks like. So when you enter this facility in the side of the mountain, it goes in, and it is beautiful. It's like a slate-type shiny surface, and then all of a sudden, it starts winding down and down, deeper down into the mountain. There's also another facility, which I told you all about last time I was out here, and this is the one where we have numerous other beings. There are the Arcturians, Andromedans, what else? Some other little guys that I don't know the names of. Let's see. Well, anyway, there's a wide variety of different beings in that one. In that particular facility is a big gold orb that's about 10 feet in diameter. And that golden orb is there to rejuvenate the beings so they can stay longer. So they have to be rejuvenated on a regular basis. All right? Anyway, these facilities, the reason why I'm very protective of the facilities, because we also have a lot of interference with the military. They have imploded parts of the mountain to keep us out. Fortunately, they haven't been able to hurt our wonderful star people, but it always worries me. So I want to make sure if anyone goes to the facility, because they did say we are welcome to bring people to the facility, but they must be in their hearts and understand the importance of unconditional love. For they are giving it to us. Why can't we give it to them as well? They only ask that we give back what they give to us. And they're fabulous. They give us incredible love. Another experience that I've been having that has been phenomenal is this isn't a phenomenal experience. I'm going to say my husband was in the hospital for like 6 weeks. That's not phenomenal. Well, probably for him it was a little bit phenomenal because he had never been in the hospital before. So he ended up with 2 surgeries, not expecting them. But while he was in the hospital, and I was alone for 6 wonderful weeks, well, 6 weeks, 6 weeks. And they weren't really that wonderful. But wow, the things I got by with, and he didn't even know. I one night went into my master bathroom. Now I told you I have a vortex that runs through the mountain. It goes through my house, through the master bedroom, and through the master bath, because the vortex is actually between the bathroom and the bedroom. And literally there have been times when the vortex opens up and it turns blue. It's like a blue light that comes from the ground up into the bedroom. Well, one night I got up, I get up every hour, on the hour almost, and I got up and I tripped over something in the bathroom. I backed up like this when I was standing at the counter. I backed up, lost my footing, and I fell, and I was just inches from hitting the back of my head. And just a few months before that, I'd had a horrible concussion. It was really painful and got blood clots and everything from it. But anyway, so here I was about to fall again. And no, I'm all alone in the house. Well, my dogs, okay, I have 3 dogs too. I'm all alone in the house, and as I'm falling, and I'm literally falling back, I'm inches from hitting the bathtub, and I knew that that would probably kill me, right? All of a sudden, something picked me up. Nobody was in the bathroom. Picked me up like this as I'm falling backwards. There's no way I could have done, I don't think. I could have done this, but all of a sudden I'm pushed forward, back on my feet. And I was so amazed because they stopped me from dying. It was awesome. So since then, a few times a week, now and when I get up in the middle of the night and I really want to have some fun, I will ask them, especially when I feel them enter my bathroom. It's not like they like my bathroom, truly. It's just the vortex runs through it, okay? So anyway, I feel them in the bathroom, and so I'll say to them, I want to experience you. And this is what's been happening. I'm so excited about this. I love it. And you guys are going to love it too, because you're going to be able to do this. What I say is, I would love to feel who you are and what it feels like to be you. And my husband, after he came home from the hospital, woke up in the middle of the night because I wasn't in bed, and he opens up the bathroom door, and I'm holding on to the countertop, and I'm going, and my husband said, what are you doing? How do you tell a person who's not really awake? And you know, he doesn't understand what we understand, you know what I mean? I'm going, I'm experiencing, and he goes, experiencing what? Well, there's a being in the bathroom. He knows about the beings, okay? There's a being in the bathroom, and I allowed it to come into my body, and it just blew me. He said, well, you tell that being to get its butt out of your body, and you get in bed. So I have to be very careful now. I have to make sure that I give my husband a sleeping pill before I get up in the morning. No, I don't do that to him. I really don't. But I've been loving it. This has been happening to me a lot. So well, not that he catches me. Oh boy, this sounds kind of bad, doesn't it? I'm getting myself deeper. But they also, not only do I get to experience them in me, I give them permission. I give them permission to enter my body, but they give me permission to enter their body. Now, I'm telling you this now because we all of us can do this. But again, believe, because as soon as you say, God, I can't do that, you're not going to do it. But if you believe you can do it, you will do it. Trust me, it feels good. It really does. Best thrill I've ever had. Let's see, what else? Oh, I could tell some more things, but I better not. Okay, well, there was one experience. All right, this one's fun. Golly, it's kind of embarrassing. Okay. All right, I'm getting older and older, you know. As you get older, you don't have the same libido as when you were younger, you know what I mean? And sometimes my husband complains about that. And so one night, we were in this little bitty argument about my libido. And I thought to myself, I lay in bed and I meditate and I talk to him telepathically all the time. And I said, am I always going to be like this? Am I ever going to know what it's like to be, really, well, okay, excited, and well, you get the drift. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking, I'm hopeless, really. I'm hopeless. I mean, after all, I'm only human, right? And so I'm laying here in the bed, and I'm thinking, I want to know, is it possible, will I ever, maybe in my next lifetime, be really sexual, right? All of a sudden, 3 beings appear in the bedroom. Now, let me tell you, you got 3 of them? Uh-huh. No, I did not. But all 3 beings looked identical. They had long, pointed ears, very rounded head like the Zetas, kind of rounded like a Zeta, but not a big head. And they had these robes on that had the high neck, kind of like the Zeta, the high neck on this one. And one of them, they, by the way, can change their appearance anytime they want. They can be any color they want. They can be polka dotted. They could be striped. They can be anything. They love changing. They have this ability. It's whatever we choose, we can be, right? So here's one of them that's white, all white, another one that's red, and another one that's black. And they've all got the pointed ears. And I'm looking at them and going, what are you doing here? Well, they heard my question, am I ever going to be sexual again? And all of a sudden, the one, and I don't know why the 3 different colors, but maybe that's because humans think of white people, black people, red people. I mean, like the Indians, the Caucasian, the blacks, and the Indians, right? So I thought, well, maybe that's what they represented. I wasn't quite sure. And all of a sudden, the black one with the nice pointed ears turns around and looks at me, and I'm looking at him like, why is he looking at me like this? And the next thing I know, I found out my answer. Whoa. You don't have to touch one another to have the best sex ever. Trust me.
Like a cocoon, right?
Oh, it's like Cocoon, the movie Cocoon. How many saw that movie Cocoon? Do you remember when, what was it, Gutenberg, what was his name, Steve Gutenberg? And and they were in the swimming pool, and he wanted to know what it was like having sex for the aliens, right? Or for these, I don't like that word aliens, for the star people. And she said, well, I'll show you. And then she, out of her, was it her third eye that the light, out of her heart chakra. Out of her heart chakra comes a white ball, and it bounces around the room, and then it hits him in his heart chakra, and he goes, ah. I did that, only better. I really did. It was wonderful. So, and I realized, it's all about love. It's really about love. They were just letting me know how easy it is to love one. It doesn't matter what we look like, what color we are, or if we have polka dots or not. It doesn't matter any of that. Love is love. It is our driving force. Now, my glasses. I'm used to wearing them on my head, but I look pretty funny with these points on my head.
Did you remember what he said right after it happened? He says, if this is foreplay, I'm a dead man.
If this is foreplay, I'm a dead man? Oh, trust me. I thought I died and gone to heaven that night. When I would have rather, too, because it was awesome. Okay, we'll go on to something else, a little bit lighter. Let's see. We already talked about taking back our power. Okay. How am I doing on time? All right. What I would like to do is, let me